Ernest Becker's captivating 1973 book, The Denial of Death, takes us on an exhilarating journey into the depths of the human psyche, where we confront the enigmatic fear of death and its impact on our behavior, relationships, and personal identity. Becker's storytelling weaves together the thoughts of existential philosophers, psychologists, and anthropologists, creating a rich and thought-provoking tapestry that explores the human condition. At the core of Becker's narrative is the idea that humans are driven by an innate fear of death. Becker commences by quoting Jose Ortega y Gasset, who stated that life is at the start a chaos in which one is lost. The individual suspects this, but he is frightened at finding himself face to face with this terrible reality, and tries to cover it over with a curtain of fantasy where everything is clear. It does not worry him that his ideas are not true. He uses them as trenches for the defense of his existence, as scarecrows to frighten away reality. Recognizing our fragile existence, we craft a curtain of fantasy to shield ourselves from the harsh reality of mortality. This process of self-deception manifests in various forms: belief systems, ideologies, personal preoccupations, and social games, all serving as vehicles to deny and escape the reality of death. Becker contends that this denial of death shapes our thoughts and actions, often leading to irrational and self-destructive behaviors. He claims that we drive ourselves into a blind obliviousness, with distractions so far removed from the reality of our situation that they resemble madness. By clinging to these distractions, we seek to construct a stable and coherent sense of self that transcends our physical and temporal limitations. Becker's writings caused more than just a stir upon its publication, in no small part due to its harsh exposition of the dualism between a material and a symbolic self. Man has a symbolic identity that brings him sharply out of nature. He is a symbolic self, a creature with a name, a life history. He is a creator with a mind that soars out to speculate about atoms and infinity, who can place himself imaginatively at a point in space and contemplate bemusedly his own planet. This immense expansion, this dexterity, this ethereality, this self-consciousness gives to man literally the status of a small god in nature, as the Renaissance thinkers knew. Yet, at the same time as the Eastern sages also knew, man is a worm and food for worms. This is the paradox. He is out of nature and hopelessly in it. He is dual, up in the stars and yet housed in a heart-pumping, breath-gasping body that once belonged to a fish and still carries the gill marks to prove it. His body is a material, fleshy casing that is alien to him in many ways, the strangest and most repugnant way being that it aches and bleeds and will decay and die. Man is literally split in two. He has an awareness of his own splendid uniqueness in that he sticks out of nature with a towering majesty, and yet he goes back into the ground a few feet in order to blindly and dumbly rot and disappear forever. Becker's exploration of human nature resonates with the ideas of Abraham Maslow, the renowned humanistic psychologist who recognized the inherent paradox within our species. We are at once worms and gods. As humans, we possess a unique awareness of our mortality, which instills in us a deep sense of vulnerability and insignificance. Simultaneously, we are capable of remarkable achievements, transcending our animal nature to create art, technology, and complex societies that echo across time. Maslow notes, "It is precisely the godlike in ourselves that we are ambivalent about, fascinated by and fearful of, motivated to and defensive against." This is one aspect of the basic human predicament, that we are simultaneously worms and gods. Maslow observes that we fear our highest possibilities, recognizing our potential for greatness but being simultaneously daunted by the responsibility and consequences it entails. We are generally afraid to become that which we can glimpse in our most perfect moments under conditions of great courage. We enjoy and even thrill to godlike possibilities we see in ourselves in such peak moments. And yet we simultaneously shiver with weakness, awe, and fear before these very same possibilities. This dual nature creates an internal conflict as we strive to reconcile our animal instincts with our higher aspirations. Becker argues that this struggle lies at the heart of the human condition, with our desire for immortality and transcendence clashing with the inescapable reality of death and decay. Becker captures the tragic irony of our existence, stating that our deepest need is to be free from the anxiety of death and annihilation, but it is life itself that awakens this anxiety, forcing us to shrink from being fully alive. This encapsulates the cruel paradox of human existence. Our very awareness of death forces us to confront the fragility of life, which, in turn, motivates our desire to escape the cycle of mortality. As a result, we are compelled to create systems of meaning, purpose, and value that transcend our physical existence, all the while denying the reality of our eventual demise. Becker's analysis of the human condition underscores the profound existential challenges we face as a species. In grappling with our mortality, we are torn between our desire for significance and our awareness of our ultimate insignificance. This tension is powerfully captured in Becker's observation that man is literally split in two. He has an awareness of his own splendid uniqueness in that he sticks out of nature with a towering majesty, and yet he goes back into the ground a few feet in order to blindly and dumbly rot and disappear forever. This duality drives us to seek solace in various forms of denial and distraction, which, while providing temporary comfort, often prevents us from living authentically and fully embracing the richness of our existence. Becker notes that the irony of man's condition is that the deepest need is to be free of the anxiety of death and annihilation, but it is life itself which awakens it, and so we must shrink from being fully alive. To assuage the anxiety generated by our awareness of death, Becker asserts that humans create various coping mechanisms such as religion, ideology, and cultural rituals. These systems of meaning infuse our lives with a sense of continuity and purpose, enabling us to weave narratives that allow us to believe in our own symbolic immortality. However, these coping mechanisms often come with their own set of problems, as they can lead to intolerance, dogmatism, and violence in the name of defending the belief systems that give us a sense of existential security. Moreover, the pursuit of symbolic immortality can distract us from the present moment, causing us to overlook the beauty and significance of our immediate experiences. Man literally drives himself into a blind obliviousness with social games, psychological tricks, personal preoccupations so far removed from the reality of his situation that they are forms of madness. But madness all the same. Later, Becker elaborates on how people ignore the inevitable realization that death eventually comes to us all, and the petty lives that many lead in a frail attempt to not confront their inescapable fates. The normal man bites off what he can chew and digest of life, and no more. In other words, men aren't built to be gods, to take in the whole world. They are built like other creatures, to take in the piece of ground in front of their noses. Gods can take in the whole of creation because they alone can make sense of it, know what it is all about and for. But as soon as man lifts his nose from the ground and starts sniffing at eternal problems like life and death, the meaning of a rose or a star cluster, then he is in trouble. Most men spare themselves this trouble by keeping their minds on the small problems of their lives, just as their society maps these problems out for them. They are what Kierkegaard called the immediate men and the Philistines. They tranquilize themselves with the trivial, and so they can lead normal lives. Ultimately, Becker's analysis suggests that the human predicament is rooted in our struggle to reconcile the conflicting aspects of our nature, our capacity for greatness, and our vulnerability to death. This tension fuels our relentless quest for meaning and our denial of the reality of our mortality. Ernest Becker's The Denial of Death is a profound yet also unsettling exploration of the human condition, revealing the complex interplay between our fear of death, our desire for significance, and our instinctual drive for self-preservation. At its core, Becker's work challenges us to confront the paradoxes inherent in our nature, inviting us to embrace our duality as both worms and gods, and to live authentically in the face of our inevitable demise. In doing so, we may find a deeper sense of meaning and purpose, transcending the limitations of our physical existence and experiencing the richness of life in all its complexity and beauty.